Hey, I'm Blake Buchanan.
I'm Chase Jenkins.
And we're with Centrifuge Training, and we're here today to talk to you about mastering your handheld light.
Stop! Drop that down! Run!
All right, there's a lot of data that kind of supports the need for lights. When we look at officer-involved shootings specifically, we find that approximately 70% of those are in a low light setting. When we look at the 70% and we kind of isolate it to the engagements in which we are using some form of white light to be able to see or solve the problem, 80% of those are handheld engagements, meaning that the handheld light is being utilized far more than the weapons mounted light.
The reason that I think we see that is most of our situations began with us searching or navigating to the situation, to the scene, and we're obviously doing that with the handheld light.
So I think a lot of guys kind of undervalue, or they don't understand the importance of the handheld, and they don't know necessarily what the handheld may do for them. They think kind of in the confines of, hey, it's just a light, so that's all that matters. I just need to be able to see. Really, ultimately, when we're talking about handheld lights versus weapon-mounted lights, we're talking about a light that is immediately available or readily available, just simply providing us information to be able to solve problems.
So when you look at the versatility of the handheld light, there's a lot of things that are a lot more simple with the handheld light. The searching, especially, I can start working beyond intermediate barriers, barricades, reducing angles, a lot more simple with that handheld light. When I have to search for the handheld light, a lot of times that is easier as well if I don't know the situation would warrant me actually pointing a muzzle at what I'm searching for.
Because of the reactive nature of police work, we often find that the light that is being used is the light that is in hand. So if the officer is out on the handheld light, say searching, and that escalates to a use of force, they're not going to be able to transition to a weapon-mounted light more often than not in the time parameters of the engagement. So they have to put a priority on being able to run the gun with the light in hand. Also, we find that there's an advantage to having a light that is being worked on a different plane than the gun. If you can kind of imagine, the weapons mounted light is obviously attached to the gun and it's going to have to work on the same plane, whereas a handheld light offers us some versatility or some mobility to be able to work the light up, over, and around barricades. We often work in a three-dimensional environment, for example, vehicles that present kind of unique angles in which we need to get as much light as we can around that barricade or around that three-dimensional object while giving us as much protection or cover from that particular barricade. So doing that is going to require certain handheld lighting techniques, right? It's not really a one-size-fits-all. Many will just kind of run through a gamut of handheld lighting techniques and say, hey, use the one that you like, whereas that may be one that you prefer from an efficiency standpoint. But the reality is there's a goal here, and the goal is getting maximum light downrange with minimum exposure of us. And that exposure kind of means two things. We obviously don't want to be overexposed from cover, but we also don't want any light hitting cover. We don't want light hitting cover, but that's because that's going to be light that then hurts our vision or our ability to see beyond cover, and also that's going to unnecessarily illuminate us. So something we take our students through is we demonstrate how to use the handheld light around cover, and that's going to require 4 specific techniques that we teach.
So we teach 4 flashlight holds, not 9, and it's because we need both left and right side barricade options, and we need supported and unsupported options. All right, so that's 4 flashlight holds that get us there. So modified FBI, simple index, Harry's, or reverse Harry's. Now, which one you use is dictated by the environment. So the second principle of low light is going to be that the environment dictates the light. Tracking with me on that. If I was working on left side barricade here using this D pillar of the van and I'm fighting that way, right? A good flashlight hold would be the modified FBI. As a left side unsupported option, modified FBI would work great. If I transition over here to a right side barricade, so now I'm working long axis of the van, modified FBI still works, I just have to move it, right? So if I was like, yeah, modified FBI is up here to the left. No, right? It's not a definitive place in space, right? Modified FBI just means I'm moving the light away from my body and I'm moving it where it needs to be to optimize that light in that environment. So if I'm working right side barricade, that might mean I'm bringing it up over here on the right side of my body. Does that track? But one thing when it comes to working right side barricade that'll help with that accuracy, as I start to throw it on the right side of the body, if I find the hot spot's not where I want it, if I just take where the watch lands and drive it to the crown of the head, it'll usually auto correct the light. So bring it over, light's not where I want it, drive it to the crown of the head and the light goes exactly where I want it. Does that make sense? It's kind of like an index position. Anytime I can index something into something, giving it a reference point, it's going to be more repeatable, right? And it's going to be more reliable. So again, left side barricade, modified FBI, unsupported. It also works right side barricade. Pro tip is connecting it to the crown of the head. That index can be repeated on a left side barricade with the second flashlight technique, which is temple index. Does that track? The temple index. The reason why we call it temple index is not because Centrifuge is all obsessed with temple index, like we hear that on the Instagram, right? It's not that. It's that it's the best place to put the light to be on the same plane as the eyes, right? Like the closer I can get to the plane of the eyes, the more accurate that light is going to be. And in that, it's going to go where I'm looking, right? If I bring it any lower than the eyes, it starts to present shadows. So you guys see the shadow of my gun hand? That's your two unsupported options, modified FBI and simple index. Any questions so far? The right side barricade option there is bringing the light across the head and pinning it to the crown of the head. Good to go? All right, let me give you the supported options. So what you probably know is going to be the traditional Harries. So that's going to be specific to the right side barricade as a right-handed shooter. What I do here is I drive the light under the gun, back of the hand to back of the hand pressure, right? So what this typically or can look like, right, with guys who have not repped it out, is they start getting very lazy with that back of the hand to back of the hand pressure, and you'll just see like something kind of creating like a shelf, right? The shelf is kind of twofold when they start running it like this. Number one, they're probably not getting light on target, right? You'll often see like the light will be down below the target, and they're not actually getting any support or input into the gun. I kind of have a standard here, right? It's about the gun, not about the light. If the supported technique is not allowing me to run the gun faster and more accurately, then why am I using it? Does that make sense? I have more versatility with a light hold that allows me to move the light up, over, and around and away, right? There's more versatility there, so there's a benefit to it. If I'm going to lose all of that versatility to slave the light to the same plane as the gun, it better be affording me the opportunity to run the gun faster and more accurately. So what needs to happen is the back of the hand needs to present or press into the back of the hand. I'm actually driving this pressure this way. Just as if it was a support hand, I would be driving pressure into the gun. Just as if I'm talking about thumb positioning, I'm driving pressure into the gun. I'm driving that back of the hand pressure into that support hand now, which is going to give me that increased leverage on the gun. Does that make sense? Now let's go back and talk about left side. So move over here a little bit more to the left so you can kind of see what I'm highlighting here. So if I'm righty working left side, I've already shown you the issues with the Harries. It's going to require that I overexpose to get light downrange. So now I need the light to go on the left side of the gun. And how I do that is going to be what's called the reverse Harry. So I'm going to take the meaty part of the palm. Chase, let my hand up. I'm going to take the meaty part of the palm, specifically the meaty part of the palm, not the knuckles, not the light, not the fingers, right? The meaty part of the palm. And I'm going to drive it into an isolated point on the grip. Right, so like if you're running like a Glock, it's like where the Glock logo is. If you're running like a Staccato, it's like where the star is. So I'm actually taking that meaty part of the palm and I'm driving it into an isolated point on the grip. When it connects, there should be no interfacing of the slide or the top side of the frame with the fingers, knuckles, etc. So as the slide reciprocates, like it's not going to impact the hand. Does that track? If you put the whole hand against the gun, then yeah, it runs the risk of doing that, and which is obviously problematic if the gun stops working, but it also is going to not give you the benefit of that isolated pressure, which if I'm not getting the benefit of supporting the gun, then again, why am I doing it? Same concept as what I talked about in the traditional Harries. Good to go there. So again, isolated pressure, palm of the gun into the grip, and I'm just gonna crush. Dudes, you'll be surprised how much pressure you can generate in this technique. So I'm just gonna crush into the grip, and that's going to be my reverse Harries. It allows me to light on the left side of the gun. It allows me to maximize cover. Good to go there.
All right, so most LE engagements are reactive in nature. With that being said, that usually means that we may start in a less than ideal situation, a less than ideal position, or if it has escalated to using light and gun, maybe a less than ideal orientation of those two tools. We'd mentioned earlier that generally this engagement in low light is going to start with us already being on the handheld prior to us drawing the gun and using the gun. And we have two priorities when it comes to this, right? That is going to be improve the gun and improve the position. How I would improve the gun may just simply be how I would improve the light source. So I may then need to transition from handheld light to a handgun light. The tool like the theorem ring may make that a little bit more efficient, and I'll show you what I mean. So if I'm working the handheld light like so, and I have the time and opportunity to improve the gun by transitioning to a weapons mounted light, I may be able to simply use the ring to retain the light as I fire the weapons mounted light with a support hand, and now I'm good to go with the handgun light.
Weapon light, I can stow the light, I can flip it out of the way, whatever the case may be. Improve the weapon light. I need to work my way up, post out on a 45, focus still a shoot. I'm gonna continue to move.
All right, so when you start looking at the care and maintenance of your handheld light, one of the first things that we need to discuss is batteries. Especially if you're working this from a duty standpoint, training standpoint, operational standpoint, where things may carry on for an extended period of time, I may want the option to put fresh batteries in that light. So the cell vault is one of the things that allow us to easily organize and store these batteries, extra batteries for the light. Easy to keep it either on your kit or in your kit somewhere where it's accessible. Then as we start looking at other issues that we may need to do is keeping the lens clean. If we get it dirty, muddy, bloody, whatever the case is, there's several different options out there to make sure that we keep that lens clean so that we're actually getting full power and use out of the light downrange. A couple of the other things that I'll pay attention to also is the switchology. I want to kind of keep that free and clean of any grit. So every so often I will take a rag, Q-tip, something of that nature, and make sure that I'm keeping the dirt, the mud, the grit out from around that switch so that there's no issues or any hindrances in actually being able to activate the light.
Yeah, absolutely, Chase. If I was going to add to that, I would say this. A lot of guys are just used to a low maintenance light, I guess. And what I find with a low maintenance light is often it's just a low performance light. And as we have a tool with this increased capability, increased performance, it's very similar to the iron sight transition to a red dot sight. With that being said, this light does require a rechargeable battery. A lot of people kind of initially look at that as a negative because they're used to like a dock light where they don't have to disassemble the light to replace the battery. But I want you to look at it as a positive. Not only is this particular light using a more high performance battery than many of those lights, but it's a battery that if I have something like the cell vault that I can change in the field. So instead of docking the light to recharge it and now I'm out that particular light, just a few seconds, I can pop the head, throw a fresh battery in, and I'm good to go. Yeah, one thing I really appreciate about these as well is that I can pretty much service this light for myself in the field. I know we run this a lot in NLTA where there's marking rounds that are impacting the lenses, or maybe with the groundwork portion in live fire, these lenses may be impacting a rock or brass on the range, and it's fairly common that the lenses become damaged, broken, etc., or the bezel broken in some way. And because these are user serviceable lights with huge advantage that we find in these, really quickly with a small tool I can take the bezel off this thing and put fresh glass in it. So that's something that I really appreciate about this light.
I think if you understand the application of what we're trying to do with the light, the versatility of the handheld light, how to apply that, if you use and understand this correctly, it may prevent even having to go to the weapon-mounted light.
All right, so we travel the country and we get the fortunate pleasure of training with dudes of every skill level. I think everybody comes with thought process that, hey, we're going to a gun class, so we're going to get a lot of use out of the gun light. And although we absolutely teach guys how to use and maximize that weapons mounted light, I don't think they understand until they get to experience working in an environment or training in an environment that is consistent with the one that they work in. They don't understand or appreciate the value of the handheld light.
Guys, don't take our word for it. Get out and seek training and use of the handheld light. If you want training with us, Centrifuge Chase, Centrifuge Blake, centrifugetraining.com. We appreciate you hanging out with us.